So a while back, I was asking people for some ideas of stuff that they'd like to hear on the channel or see on the channel. One of the things that people said they would like to see more of is and hear more of is stories. Sorry, stories from my time in the military. So with this week being Veterans Day, I thought that would be, or this week being the week that Veterans Day is in, I thought this would be a good time to tell a few more stories. So this week I'm going to do my best to dedicate the week to Veterans Day. Today, the story that I would like to talk about is I would like to tell you a little bit about military challenge coins, and I want to tell the story of how I got this coin, which is my most prestigious coin in my collection. I'm going to walk you through some of the coins that I have in my collection. These are not all of the coins that I have. These are just the ones that I have readily available. I had them in this, got this little puzzle box. And for some reason, these are the coins that I had in this puzzle box that I keep on top of my dresser. I have some more coins from my time in the military, but those are in a footlocker somewhere in another room in my basement. And I'm not going to try to find those. Those are tucked away with all my awards, and I can't tell you which ones are there. Also, if you ask me which awards I got in the military, I can't tell you that answer either because I don't know. It's not something I've really cared about. But anyway, the story of a military challenge coin. I already showed you one coin here. This was this is the most prestigious coin I've ever had. I have a bunch of other coins too. I'm going to tell you the story about the coins that I have. But what a coin is somebody, usually somebody with some rank or someone who represents a military unit will have a coin made. Usually it has that person's name or their unit insignia on the coin. They will, those ranking people will usually carry a coin in their pocket. And when they see somebody who's done a particularly good job or someone who needs to be congratulated, they might walk up to them and say, "Hey, how you doing? You just did a really good job." They'll hold out their hand, and when you go to shake their hand, they'll place a coin in your hand during the handshake. So you think you're getting a handshake, and then when you pull your hand away, you have a coin in your hand. It's kind of a way to give an award without all the pomp and circumstance. Now, what you do with these coins is, this is the version of the story that I've heard. A lot of this is kind of a little bit of legend, and everybody has their own version of this story. But the version of the story that I had is that you're supposed to carry your most prestigious coin in your pocket when you're kind of on leave or around military bases. And with that coin, when you're out for drinks with your buddies, you might go ahead and pull your coin out of your pocket, slam it down on the bar, and that is a challenge to everybody else. Everybody has to pull their coin out of their pocket, slam that down on the counter. And if somebody forgot to bring a coin with them, they are now responsible for buying drinks for the rest of the group. Another version I've heard is that if everybody has a coin on them, that the person who started the coin challenge is supposed to buy the drinks. I've also heard a version of the story that says whoever has the most prestigious coin wins the challenge, and the person who has the least prestigious coin loses the challenge and therefore has to buy drinks. So I'm going to walk you through some of the coins that I have and tell you the story about how I got them. And then when I tell you the story about how I got this coin, this is quite possibly one of the most veteran stories that I can tell from my time when I was in Iraq. So the first coin, I'll get into it because I don't want to take too long. This is kind of a generic Columbus Police coin. I'm pretty sure I was given this when I graduated from the academy. Here is another coin from Columbus Police. This one was given to me by my sergeant last year for Christmas when I was still working on third shift. It says, the Sheepdogs of the Hill, 19 Precinct C Company, which is third shift, 19 Precinct, which is the Hilltop. On the flip side, has a CPD badge with a 19 in the middle. And again, it says Sheepdogs of the Hill. It's hard to get it to focus for you and have some light. This is a really nice coin. This is when Sarge had this one made, he did a really good job ordering this coin. I really like this one. Then getting into some of the ones I have from the military. This one is from the 519th Military Police Battalion. When I was in Iraq, this is one of the battalions that I was attached to. So there's that coin. Not too fancy, but it's a battalion coin. This one, this is from the 18th MP Brigade. That was the brigade that all the MPs in Iraq, as far as I know, fell under when we were in country from 2003 to 2004. I believe I got this coin when I was stationed up at their headquarters for a little while. I was like the squad leader in charge of the security details for the battalion or brigade commander for a little while. This is the 709th Military Police Battalion coin, March 2003 to March 2004. This was the unit that I was attached to for the majority of my first deployment. We stayed at one of the palaces just on the other side of the crossed swords. So there you can see the insignia of the crossed swords and all that kind of fancy stuff. A bunch of flags in the background. I should have held that one for next. This one is the 233rd Military Police Company coin. This was one of the companies that we did some work with, or maybe I ran into their commander, first sergeant, and he decided to give me a coin. I don't quite remember. The funny thing is, with these coins that I have from when I was in Iraq, I don't have one from my own company, which is kind of funny. So anyway, now this coin right here. This coin is the Combined Joint Task Force 7 Command Sergeant Major coin. What's it say? It says Combined Joint Task Force, we will not falter, we will not fail. I believe those are the words taken from one of George Bush's speeches right at the beginning of the war. So Combined Joint Task Force 7 was the task force that was in charge of the entire military, or the entire war, the time that I was there, from 2003 to 2004. The Sergeant Major was Command Sergeant Major Preston. Command Sergeant Major Preston, shortly after giving me this coin, became the Sergeant Major of the Army. So while I was in Iraq, he was the highest ranking enlisted person in country. And then shortly thereafter, and it's while I was still in Iraq, he actually became the Command Sergeant Major of the Army. Now, the reason that this coin and the way I got it is the most veteran story that I can tell. Is because it was quite a change of 2 different days and 2 different times that I met Command Sergeant Major Preston, 2 days in a row, which it's not very often that you get to meet someone of that stature once in a combat zone, let alone twice. So the first time that I met him, we had been out in the, a lot of times we call it the red zone, or we'd been out in Baghdad all day, doing our patrols, doing our thing. And we were coming back to the green zone because that's where our base was, so that we could end our day. I think we'd probably been out for 12 or more hours. It was hot, probably 120, 130 degrees. We were in Humvees with no armor, no air conditioning, sweating our butts off. And getting back to the green zone was pretty much the best thing that you could ever hope for when you're over there. Because when you left, there's a lot of things that could go wrong, a lot of things that could happen. You're at an extreme, high level of situational awareness. You just don't, you didn't want to get blown up. You're always on the lookout for things that could kill you. When you got back to the green zone, it meant that you could let your guard down significantly. Because if you were going to get blown up in the green zone, it was going to be something that came from up above. And a lot of times you heard that stuff coming. So you could relax most of the time when you're in the green zone. So we're getting back into the green zone. And there was a series of 3 kind of checkpoints when you got back in. The first one, you could kind of just roll through. That would be the first checkpoint where they have like an Abrams and a Bradley, kind of a high use of, or high display of power, just to let everybody know, hey, you're coming into the green zone. If you try to do something, we're going to kill you. So we would typically just roll right by that checkpoint. Then you got to the next part of the checkpoint, and that's where it would kind of split off. You'd have the civilians would all have to go this way to have their cars and everything searched. The military personnel would go this way, where you didn't have to get searched, but there was one more checkpoint up ahead, and typically you just kind of slow down, give them a, hey, what's up, and they just wave you through. That third kind of checkpoint, that's only there kind of as a last-ditch effort in case something went horribly wrong, like a civilian accidentally got into the military side of the convoy, or if something unthinkable had happened and some bad guys got a hold of some U.S. military equipment and tried to roll through the checkpoint so that they could go in and do bad things. So there we are, on our way back into the green zone. We'd gone through the first 2 checkpoints, and all of a sudden we're waiting in line for that third checkpoint. This was a very, very frustrating thing for a military person who'd just come back from patrol, because for an unknown reason, there was a line of cars trying to get back into the green zone, and we still, for lack of a better term, we still kind of had our asses hanging out in the wind, because even though we had a Abrams tank and a Bradley behind us and then another military checkpoint, we were still out in the red zone. We were still in a conflict area, and it was still very dangerous for us to be where we were. And when you're kind of stopped in traffic outside of the green zone, that is the absolute worst thing that you can do in that environment. And I'd been there for, at that time, probably 7 or 8 months. So as we get closer and closer and closer, I remember my machine gunner saying, oh, there's some high-ranking person up there that wants to talk to everybody, because my machine gunner was up on top, looking out ahead of us, and it was obvious to him that it was somebody with some rank that was talking to everybody. Well, when we finally pulled up to the checkpoint, it was none other than Command Sergeant Major Preston. Now, what might you ask was Command Sergeant Major Preston waiting to talk to everybody about? Well, he looked into the vehicle, he looked at my driver, who was a specialist at the time, and he said, "Specialist, do you have your seatbelt on?" To which my driver replied, "No, Sergeant Major, I do not have my seatbelt on." Sergeant Major got this really angry look. There's a certain kind of look that only Sergeant Majors are capable of giving you. And then he looks at me and he's like, "Sergeant, why isn't your driver wearing a seatbelt?" I didn't really have a good excuse. I wasn't really in the mood to have one or try to make one up. I also wasn't in a very pleasant mood, and I didn't have anything nice that I was going to say to the Sergeant Major at that time. So my response was simply, "I don't know, Sergeant Major." Then he looked at me and he said, "Sergeant, are you wearing your seatbelt?" And I said, "As a matter of fact, Sergeant Major, no, I'm not wearing my seatbelt." What I wanted to say was, go fuck yourself. Because when you're out in Baghdad, driving around all day, sweating your ass off, worrying about getting your ass blown off, putting a seatbelt on is pretty much the last thing that ever crossed my mind. But no, Sergeant Major, I'm not wearing my seatbelt was the answer. So then I got a lecture about how I was failing my men and how accidents are still the leading cause of death in the military, and it's very important that we wear our seatbelts and yada, yada, yada. After yelling at us, he let us go. So we went back to our little camp and unloaded as you'd have it. The next day, we actually had a day off. So sometime after breakfast in the early morning or in the mid-morning, I was laying in my tent, which we had kind of big open squad tents, almost like a barracks, but they were old. I don't know if that time we were still using old GP mediums or if they'd given us some slightly better tents, but it was just tents with cots on both sides, a row of poles down the middle. You had your foot locker at the end of your bed and all that kind of stuff. So first sergeant starts walking through the tent randomly. We would go to get up and he just says, "Relax, relax, relax." And then he comes up to me, calls me by my name. He's like, "Hey, Sergeant." He's like, "I need you to put your uniform on, come to the front of the palace." And then he grabs one of the other lower enlisted guys. He went to each tent, and whoever he found there, I mean, there was multiple people there, but he would be somewhat selective. He grabbed a sergeant and a lower enlisted from each platoon, which we had 4 platoons, told us all to go to the front of the palace and wait. So we all get to the front of the palace with our uniforms on. Standing there, they arranged us in 2 lines. They put the lower enlisted guys in the front, all the sergeants and senior enlisted guys in the back. And then, they put us at position of attention for inspection, which is awesome. When you're in combat, inspections are really what you want. And next thing you know, some brass starts walking in. Well, as it would turn out, the brass was Command Sergeant Major Preston, and whatever general was his counterpart. Because if you know anything about the military, you have two branches. You have enlisted and you have commissioned officers. The enlisted side, it goes, at least in the on the Army, it's private, private E2, private first class, specialist, sergeant, sergeant first, sergeant, staff sergeant, sergeant first class. Then you go up to master sergeant, first sergeant, sergeant major. Once you're a sergeant major, you've kind of reached the top of the rank. For the commission side, you have your lieutenants, captains, majors, lieutenant colonels, generals. When they go up, they always have a counterpart. So the counterpart of the sergeant first class is the lieutenant. The counterpart for the captain is the E8, either master sergeant or first sergeant. Then you have your enlisted as you go up. So they always travel together. The general would come through, shake everybody's hand. Then the command sergeant major came through, shook everybody's hand. I remember him, they always do the whole look at somebody, turn, step, turn, look at you, look you up and down, and then say something to you. And I remember Command Sergeant Major Preston steps up in front of me, clicks his heels, looks me down, looks me up, looks me right in the eye, and he's like, "Sergeant, you're doing a fantastic job. Our country loves you. Thank you for everything that you're doing." Sticks out his hand, and I shake his hand. When he pulls his hand away, I was holding this. It was a coin from Sergeant Major Preston. So literally the day before he gave me this coin, he was telling me how much of a piece of garbage I am and how I'm a horrible leader and that I was going to be responsible for getting my guys killed because I wasn't making them put their seatbelts on. And then the very next day, I was woken up from a nap on my day off, put in line, and Command Sergeant Major Preston came over, handed me a coin, told me I was doing a fantastic job, and that the country was proud of me. So he shortly after that became the Sergeant Major of the Army, and so this is the highest ranking coin I've ever received, and I received it in the most veteran way that you could ever receive a coin, as far as I'm concerned. Because anyone who was ever in the military and ever did any time in combat, they probably heard many, many stories like that. So anyway, thanks for listening to my story. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Those are my thoughts. I'll talk to you guys soon.